Okay, good afternoon, my grade 11 class. Today we are going to, this is lesson 2, so it should be Tuesday. And what we're going to do is just continue on with what we learned in part 1 or lesson 1. What we're going to actually do is just extend it a little bit further, and we're just going to do a little bit more factoring. A couple things you need to remember in order to be successful in this particular lesson is that we have to remember that we have to always identify our non-permissible values. That means what numbers in the denominator cannot be acceptable and would cause an expression to be undefined. And the other part is we only cancel factors. We do not cancel terms. So we'll put that into practice again today. So what we're going to start with is just reducing these expressions to lowest terms. And so again, it takes us back to factoring. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start this expression by pulling out a t. I think that's all we can do. Sorry, t. And what am I left with? A 4t squared minus 9. That's on the top. On the bottom, I can also pull out a t. So now I'm left with a 2t minus 3. So go ahead and get that down. We're not quite done though, because if you noticed in the top, in the numerator, we also have a difference of squares. So notice this, we have a difference in squares. So we want to simplify that as well. So I'll leave my t in front. I'll go ahead and go 2t minus 3, 2t plus 3. And along the bottom, we have a t and we have a 2t minus 3. So I haven't done anything to the denominator. But now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to change to red, and I'm going to do what we did the other day, which was yesterday. We're going to factor out. So notice I have a 2t minus 3 on top, and I have one on the bottom, the numerator and the denominator. Also, I want you to recognize I have this t out front and I have this t out front, so I can go ahead and cancel those as well. When I get to the end, I just collect whatever I did not cancel out, and that would be the 2t plus 3. And I have nothing on the bottom except for an assumed 1. Therefore, I don't have a denominator, and I am done. However, I also need to do restrictions. So I look again at the denominator. I like to go up to the top, check that out. Then I like to go to the second line, check that out, just in case anything has changed. So we know that t cannot equal 0 because it's out there in front. Anything multiplied by 0 will be 0. And the other one would be, of course, setting my 2t minus 3, I'm just going to show you this, 2t, don't have to write this down, minus 3. I'm going to actually set that equal to 0. So what do I need to do in that case is I put my 3 over at the other side, t equals 3 halves. So that's where I'm going to get that. Now you don't have to show that step. You should be able to see that it should be a negative 3, oh, not negative, just a positive 3 over 2. All right, so with that said, that is how we do that question. Let's go on and do the next one. We're going to factor, and that's what we're going to be doing in all of these. So here's the thing though, now we've got some polynomials that start with a coefficient in front of the x squared. So that means, now if you want, you can do a different method, but for me, I'm going to do decomposition, which is what I taught you. So I'm multiplying my 2 times the negative 3, and that will give me a negative 6. What are my factors? And when I do find my factors, I also need to add them together to get that middle term. So in this case, I'm going to have a negative x plus a 6x. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the factoring part because this is what you should be proficient in by now. We've done quite a bit of this. The other one would be the same, 2x squared, and in this case I'm going to put in my negative x plus my 2x minus 1. The next step, of course, is to group. So I'm going to pull out my, what am I going to pull out? An x in my first. So what I'm doing is, let's just refresh. I'm taking these two, and then I'm taking these two and finding what's common in the grouping. So I'll pull out the x. I'm left with 2, oops, a 2x, and we have a minus 1. And over on this side, I'll pull out a 3. So I get a 2x minus 1, which is a good thing because we need to have those the same. Down here, I'm going to pull out, now I'm doing the same thing. I'm just going to highlight it. I'm pulling out my common factors for these. So in this case, I'm going to have an x out front, and I'm going to end up with also a 2x minus 1. And here I don't have anything. I just have a 2x minus 1, which of course is a 1 here in front. So what do I have? I am going to now collect all of my like terms or my common factors, and I get x plus 3 on the top. On the bottom I have 2x minus 1 and an x plus 1. So I had to do an awful lot of work just to get to my factors. Now I go ahead and I cancel out as I learned from yesterday. So 2x minus 1, 2x minus 1, that's great. I can't cancel out any terms, just factors. So I'm at the point of my answer will be x plus 3 over x plus 1. Now my restrictions will be x cannot equal. Well, here I will figure out that I can't have a negative 1 here on the bottom. So have a look at this. See this expression right here? This means that x cannot equal 1, or else I'd have a 0 on the bottom. And this expression right here, I'm going to use a different color. I need to also identify that denominator. And in that case, x cannot be 1/2. Again, just to refresh your memory, I take that 2x minus 1 in order to do what I just did here. Watch this. You don't have to write this. I take my 2x minus 1. I equal 0. I solve for x. And x will equal, with dividing both sides by 2, x equals 1/2. That's how I got this value right there. All right, so that's how we go ahead and do that kind of question. Let's do another one. Again, more factoring. In this case, it's nice and simple. It's just an inspection factoring. So I have a, and I have a, and outside the brackets I'm going to have a 2, and I'm going to have a plus 4. And then on the bottom, same thing. I'm going to factor it. I'm going to have an a2 minus 4 and an a to the power 2 minus 16, because 16 times 4 is 64. Now here's the thing. We're not done yet, because on the top we're good. We'll just rewrite that. But on the bottom, I have difference of squares. So I have to go a minus 2, a plus 2, and a minus 4, and a plus 4. And I hear you groaning, because yes, there is an awful lot of steps here, and you just have to keep going. I feel your pain. A minus 2 can cancel out. This a plus 4 and a plus 4 can cancel out, and I'm left with a 1 on top, and I have an a plus 2 and an a minus 4 on the bottom. That is the answer, but of course I need to do my restrictions. What are my restrictions? I have a cannot equal. Now here's the thing, I have to look all over to make sure that I have covered all of the denominators. So if you look, I'm going to highlight this for you. Let's do purple. Look here, I have to find all of the restrictions. So a cannot equal 2 or negative 2. So I'm going to do a plus minus 2, and it cannot equal a plus or a minus 4. So hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, I got a couple of special examples down below, so we're going to go ahead and do those. What I have here is, it's the same kind of thing, except that a couple things that you should be aware of when you're doing these. Notice that c minus 4 and I have a 4 minus c. They're not the same at this moment, but I know that I can change this bottom around to make it look more like a c minus 4, which is the numerator. How would I do that? Well, I'm going to go ahead and write the top up. That's the same, but on the bottom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a negative sign out front. When I do that, and I'm going to move my c so you can see that it moves up, it's going to be positive because I've taken a negative sign out. So this now becomes positive. But when I take out a negative sign, that will mean my 4 becomes negative. So changing it around, I now have a positive c and a negative 4. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I can cancel these now, and I'm left with a negative 1. And c, of course, cannot equal 4 in this case. So it's a great little trick. So when you do some more factoring, and as we get more complex, what you're going to find is if we have reversals like this, I can cancel them, keeping in mind that my value will be negative 1. So that's going to be a very handy tool for us to use later on. All right, this next one. A couple little things on this one. Let's go ahead and find the common factor. Again, this is always something you need to do first. Pull out a 2p squared. If I do that, what am I left with? A p minus 2. And then on the bottom, I'm going to pull out the 8. And I'm going to be left with a 2 minus p. What did we just learn? Notice that p minus 2 almost is the same as 2 minus p. What did we learn from over here? That when they are reversed like that, I end up with an answer of a negative 1. So I can go ahead and cancel these guys out, keeping in mind that I have a negative 1. I can also cancel these. I have a 4 on the bottom, a 1 on top. So what am I left with? I'm left with the p squared over 4. And remember, I have this negative. So I have a negative p squared over 4. That's a really important point. So if you need to play that over again, I think I was pretty clear on that. Anytime you have a reversal, you're going to end up with a negative 1. So that's where that came from. The rest is pretty straightforward. What can p not equal? Always in these rational expressions, we have to come up with our permissible, non-permissible. So in this case, p cannot equal 2. Notice that comes from this step right here. Okay, we've got another one. Let's do this one. Notice it's a perfect, difference of squares. So in this case, I've got the 1 minus 2x, and I have a 1 plus 2x. That's the numerator. The denominator, I have to use decomposition. So I'm going to have a 6x squared, and I'm just going to go ahead and show you what, to save time, I'm going to decompose it for you. You all know how to do this. Next step, leave my 1 minus 2x, 1 plus 2x on my numerator, but on my denominator I will do the grouping. So recognize what I'm doing here. When I do that, I end up with a 2x on the bottom, 3x minus 4. I don't know why my screen's doing that. Plus 1, 3x minus 4. Good. Now, next line, same thing, rewrite the numerator. Denominator, I pull out my common factors, which is 3x minus 4. The other one will be 2x plus 1. Now I go ahead and I start canceling. I'm going to grab red. Notice I have a 1 plus 2x. I have a 2x plus 1. In this case, they are exactly the same. So I can cancel those out. There's no negative 1 because they're just a positive number. And then I'm left with 1 minus 2x over 3x minus 4. Restrictions, x cannot equal. So again, we need to go back and find out what x cannot equal. So this is going to come from this step, and it's going to come from this step. We set it equal to 0, and you should end up with a -1/2